All right, welcome back to another athlete interview, and this time we are bringing on Sean, who is my husband, and he's going to be telling us about how he ran 4 days a week and was training for a marathon. So welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go back into your running background, so you can tell us where you started out. Did you start in middle school, high school? When did you start running?
Yeah, I started running in middle school. It would have been 8th grade for me. So I still remember in 7th grade, my dad bringing me to the cross-country informational meeting. I was way too afraid of the concept of joining the team. There were a lot of older people, a lot of people in general, and so I chickened out. I did not join the team that first year, and I'll never forget that. And going back before that, I mean, I definitely was not a runner. I didn't enjoy running in any aspect. I didn't like the mile run in gym class. I was usually one of the last people to finish out of everyone, all of elementary school. I dreaded the day and those sorts of things. Was really more into inside sports or inside video games, inside, hanging out with friends, those sorts of things. I really didn't really enjoy playing the sports in the neighborhoods or, football in the street or anything like that. Those things all scared me away, and so I balked at the first chance to join the cross country team in 7th grade. But my dad brought me back to the meeting in 8th grade, and I did join that year. So that's where I started running.
Okay. And then did you continued all the way through high school?
Yeah, I mean, I got the bug right away. Right after the meeting, which would have been like in the springtime, I went to captain's practices all through the summer, led by some of the high schoolers. They were extremely welcoming to me. They immediately became my idols and the people I wanted to be like. I wanted to start dressing like them. I wanted to start acting like them, and I wanted to be them when I grew up. And so fell in love with the sport mostly because of those people, and also fell in love with the sport, on the run. Certainly out on the run with those people, socializing, chatting, telling stories, joking, sort of enjoying nature together, those sorts of things got me hooked like instantaneously. And so did that all through high school, so 5 years there. Went on to run in college, 5 years there, and I've been running since college. So all told, probably in my 13th year of being a runner.
13. Huh? Yeah, so I think we're about the same because you started 8th grade. I started 7th grade.
Yeah, so years in the sport would be equal. No, but you. Yeah, I guess so.
We'll go with it. Okay, so after your collegiate career, then you went on to continue to run even after college. And when did you decide to start running a marathon? Was that something you had always wanted to do? Because I feel like either some runners are like, oh, I've been wanting to do a marathon forever. Or was that something that you wanted to?
That's a good question. I definitely remember a lot of those people, like you're saying, who either always knew they wanted to or always knew they didn't want to. I specifically knew, a couple like key influences of mine, coaches over the years that had gone very far out of their way to not run a marathon, regardless of any sort of fitness they'd accrued, whether they decided it being not their type of race, whether it was, not their strong suit, or they didn't want to lose their speed, was something I often heard. I feel like that's kind of an old school thought,
Yeah, I've been heard that before.
Once you train for a marathon once, you'll never be fast again. Like you only get the slow twitch muscles, and I think that's just a really vast misunderstanding of the physiology of it. But we see that in the pro fields now. Like people are proving that wrong again and again. That you can very much still be fast after you've trained for a marathon, and so. But anyways, those people I interacted with, and so I'd kind of always been formulating my own opinions about the event based on all these things. But as college drew near its end, I knew I wanted to keep running. That was a no-brainer to me, and so I had to decide sort of what that was going to look like in my life post collegiately, and what kind of events I was gonna shoot at, go for, and quite honestly, the marathon was just the most accessible goal for me to set, being that it was widely celebrated in our culture. It had been gaining popularity in the U.S. Over the years that I was ending college and graduating, just with the American men and women running incredibly well, especially the American female marathoners. So those kind of things got me excited. They got me interested in the sport. There's a lot of chatter around, sort of, oh, I know this person who's trying to qualify for the Olympic trials, and so there were these things, these tangible things that I could hope for and shoot for, and all of those things about the marathon kind of drew me in. And there's a big events, and lots of people come out for them, and so it just seemed pretty natural for me to set my goals and training for something like that.
So you had, I think it was either right at the end of your marathon training or after that you realized that you were running about 4 days a week on average, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like a goal going in. It's probably about halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, that I kind of realized that's all I was about running.
So what led you to running 4 days a week? Why didn't you run 6 days a week? So tell us why you ended up doing that.
Yeah, I mean, so going way back in high school, I definitely ran 6 days a week. Like, that was the prescribed amount of running we were doing, and I followed it to the T. In college, it was mostly 7 days a week. I mean, I rarely took a day off. I took a day off when coach, demanded it, or when the body demanded it. And so those things, kind of came once or twice a season. I might take a Monday off, but really I ran 7 days a week, for the last, for my 5 years of college. When I graduated, I kept on that train. I ran most days of the week. But it just kind of got to the point where it was pretty strenuous, not physically, but like mentally, to keep up that pattern. And not because I didn't want to get out the door, mostly just because I got so busy doing other things. As someone trying to start, my own career, and someone who over the last couple of years was like going through grad school and just juggling a lot of different responsibilities. Some days I would really battle myself with, well, I think this run is the most important thing, and that was always my mental story that I told myself during college and high school, was the run is the most important. Plan your day around the run. And then I found myself out of college really struggling with that kind of same question. Is the run still the most important thing of my day? Can I plan my whole day around my run? And the answer, kind of became no, that there were things that I wanted more than fitness, and there were things that I wanted more than, being as fast as possible. And I started to value those things over my runs on certain days. And that really, got to me. It was really tough. It was sort of a mental, it was a mental struggle, because for so long I had picked the run over everything, and so I kind of had to transition into that thought process of picking the other things sometimes over the run, and then kind of figuring out how many runs to get in and how to plan it all out. And I'm a big planner, and this was something I didn't plan, where I just kind of fell into a happy rhythm of being able to run a couple days a week, and sort of let other things take priority when it felt natural for them to, whether that be staying late one day at work, or going to a family event, or a friend was in town and I felt like I shouldn't miss the opportunity to see them, those sorts of things. I started to just let those things take priority once in a while without letting myself stress out too much about it.
So you mentioned that it was hard transitioning from 7 days a week, which I also did in college, and it just becomes quite a norm. You move from maybe middle school running 5 days a week, high school 5, sometimes 6, and then in college it's 7 days a week, or even your off day is you're doing some other form of exercise, whether you're running a couple miles or you're even swimming, or you're still running a normal easy run. So you mentioned it being hard. Have you made peace with it at all, towards the end of your training season of running 4 days a week, or was it still something that was kind of still tricky for you to be at peace with or be happy with?
Yes, that's a good question. It was certainly still tricky. I think I was more at peace with it than I'd ever been, and And I think that's because I was getting a lot of enjoyment from those other places in my life. It wasn't just like I was so busy with other things that I couldn't run, and the things I was busy with were annoying. In this case, the things I was busy with were enjoyable. So,
What were those things?
I mean, like I said earlier, starting my new job and hanging out with people I care about, and just trying to get good at other things. I think I'm a person who always strives to be better than I was the day before, and so if I'm skipping a run so that I can stay inside and take a nap on the couch, like that's gonna get to me. That's gonna like bother me because I'm choosing the non-growth mindset over the growth mindset, whereas I felt like I was replacing my run with other things that I wanted to get better at. So in my head, it didn't feel as tough, but I'm certainly not at peace with it. I mean, at the end of the day, I've wired myself to want to be the best and strive for those big training weeks and those huge workouts, and this training segment lacked those key features, and I do feel that that still kind of got to me at the end. Yeah.
Well, from my perspective, you did really well. We'll kind of talk about that more at the end, but you did really well with your marathon on only running 4 days a week, which I thought was kind of fascinating to me. For so long, I feel like as runners, you're taught to just keep running, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, and then adding in those doubles. So what did your training days look like? Your 4 training days? Was it easy runs, workouts, long runs? What were you doing?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I made sure to have a long run every week, and those got progressively longer throughout my sort of build up. Couple easy days, and then being a high school cross country coach, typically I would do one workout with the high school team, and I'd sort of just run the reps with them, and it would be whatever they had on the schedule. I mean, by no means was the workout prescribed or altered at all in the mindset of being a marathon workout. They were just, 400 repeats one day or progressive thousands. I mean, it was nothing special, and it was very particularly low volume, being 5K cross country workouts. So, a couple easy runs. Long run, the long run was always easy. There was never any quality injected into it, and then the workout was kind of whatever was on the schedule for the high school boys. And then I did in addition usually go on one long bike ride on the weekends. So my weekends were pretty heavy. Being a teacher, working Monday through Friday and being pretty busy, I made sure that on Saturdays I would go for a long bike ride, and then Sundays I'd go for a long run. So I had a lot of hours on the legs on the weekends, and I think that also paid off pretty heavily, just because when I was tired, I was pushing pretty hard. So I was pretty used to running on tired legs or biking on tired legs, kind of depending on which one I did on Saturday and which one I did on Sunday. And so 4 days of running and 1 day of biking, was kind of approximately where I ended up. And I feel like that really helped me get a lot of volume in, just time on the legs.
Makes sense. Okay, so would you do it again, and what would you change if you needed to change anything?
Yeah, I would do it again. It was a lot of fun, and I think I hadn't had that much fun running in a long time. I certainly enjoy running, and I enjoy working hard and hurting and being sore after my runs and being sore the next day. But this time through, it definitely felt more lighthearted. It felt more like an accomplishable thing, a task that wasn't daunting. It was never like scary to get out the door, especially since I didn't do that many workouts. And the workouts I did do were things that were very within my ability level. And so it added a bit of playfulness to the whole thing, and watching the seasons change as fall kind of drew near and the race day got closer. So I would do it again for sure. I don't think I would do this for every single marathon buildup. If I say I do more, I wouldn't do this every single time. I wouldn't just say this is the way that I'm always going to do it now. I certainly would want to change things in the future and try to train harder. In order to run faster. And that's kind of the other fun part about this, is that it's sort of a blank slate, a blank canvas. Like I did some long runs, I did a couple random workouts, but at the end of the day, there's so much room to do more, and so if I want to set a bigger, faster goal in the future, I know what steps I can take to move in that direction. But if I was entering another fall with kind of the exact same schedule in mind, and I knew I had these constraints, I would certainly do the same thing again.
You would. And how did the marathon end up going?
It went pretty well. I went in kind of a couple weeks out. I started training pretty late. I was struggling. I had been running all summer, but I hadn't been like training all summer, and so then I sort of got into my actual build up where I was doing long runs. Mostly that was the thing that was lacking in my running. I wasn't doing any long runs, so I only did that for 7 or so weeks before the marathon, and I just kind of, with that in mind, I was like, okay, this isn't a really long build up. I'm just gonna have the goal of hitting about 3 hours. Felt like a nice round number and something that a lot of people talk about and shoot for. Whereas in the past, I had goals for myself as a marathoner that were much faster than that. And then as the day drew nearer, I could kind of tell that I was feeling kind of more fit than I thought that amount of training was going to get me. And so I kind of lowered the goal to maybe 255, and then on race morning I was joking around with someone that I was running the race with, and he was saying that make sure not to change your race plan during the race. Like, that's what they say all marathoners like do, and then they always pay for it. And so I got cocky and I was like, well, like I can do that though, So I got all excited, and the whole atmosphere got me, and I was like, okay, I can run faster than this. And so I did exactly what he jokingly said not to do, and I took off and went for the more aggressive goal that I had set in that exact moment of trying to hold about 620, 625 pace, and so luckily I was able to kind of hold that all the way through, with a couple slower miles at the end, with the kind of uphill ascent up Summit Avenue for the Twin Cities Marathon, and I was able to run like 2:48 and some change, and so I kind of crushed the goals I set, and felt really good doing it. The whole marathon went well, and the nutrition went well. Like, I got all my calories in, no problem. Took down tons of liquids, which has been a struggle for me in the past, and so not to keep it down, but to convince myself that it was worth doing, and so those things really clicked, and the weather was beautiful, and there were fans along the entire marathon route, which is just kind of hard to believe when it's a 26-mile race.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so last question. Any advice for somebody who is doing their marathon training and they're kind of like you, they got a lot going on, they might be coaching, new job, or they might have kids, or whatever it may be, and they cannot get in 6 to 7 days a week of training? What advice would you get them?
I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this was, just the benefactor of a lifelong of training. I've been a runner for a long time, and so I think part of it just comes with trusting that even though this particular buildup might not be perfect, you have a lot of miles on your legs from your life, whether that's previous running, previous marathon training, or maybe it's, triathlon training or bike training, or, there's other things that you can bring to the table that your body is just going to bring naturally, things that you maybe don't consider part of your fitness, but things you've learned over the years. Those things really pay dividends, and they're going to get you kind of a decent amount of the way to the finish line on their own. Another thing is to not really stress about the plan that you're executing at the moment. Trying to tinker your own plan, and this is something kind of I've learned from coaching myself since college, and I've done a terrible job at it all the way through, is just not trying to change everything kind of once you're there, and once you're in the workout, and once you're in the weeks. It's better to just trust what you're doing, whether you got your plan from the internet, whether you made it up on the fly, whether you wrote it yourself, whether you got it from someone else. Stick to the plan, because it's what you got, and your body is going to benefit from being able to go out the door and not worry about it on any given day. And then when you get to race day, there's nothing you can do to change the things that were behind you, right? So I knew the race was coming up. I knew I wanted to do it, and it didn't matter what I had done to that point. I had done the best I could to get ready for the day, and that's really all I could have asked for. So, there's nothing you can change, and so just trust in it, even if you don't know about it. You just gotta kind of blindly trust in the training that you've put into your legs.
Yeah, I would agree with the trust factor. That's a huge part of the mental piece of running. Okay, well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to be interviewed. And thanks for watching. There are some more details and free resources in the caption.